My name is James Cox. I'm a filmmaker, so I decided to make a film for this collaboration project. I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to make a commercial video, which is normally my background.
Basically, you got in contact with me through our mutual friend Claudine, and Claudine was saying that you wanted to do a film, a documentary style film. You got in contact with me and explained your project, and we organised to do the big mural.
He had previously worked with companies like Guinness to make TV adverts, so I thought it would be interesting subject matter. I started researching Marc and his work. From that point, I went on to investigating contemporary online documentary video, just looking into trends, techniques that are used throughout the industry, contemporary fonts, things that would just be in keeping with social media, and then moved on to stuff like location research, League Street Tunnel, which is a graffiti tunnel. It's a free sort of open access for graffiti artists in the City of London. At that point, I was ready to sort of start designing the final product. I knew that the type of shot I wanted to create, but I didn't want to plan it too much. I'm more of a run and gun shooter anyway. It's just the way I've worked for a number of years. So I knew I was capable of finding the shots. I wasn't sure who would be there on the day. Obviously the tunnel environment's an environment I haven't been in, so I knew it would be a challenging lighting scenario, but I felt capable that I could run and gun that kind of situation. From a technical point of view, I decided to use the Canon C100 Mark II. I use the C100 all the time for my commercial work, so it's a camera I'm used to using. I designed a risk assessment, designed with cold and wet weather in mind. We were shooting on location in London. We couldn't really control the weather, so it was important that we wore warm clothing and were prepared for the elements. From there, I enlisted the help of a photographer, Stephen Green. Further collaboration came in the form of working with Simon Tucker, who's a Plymouth-based musician. Throughout this process, I was in communication with Marc. I originally planned to shoot the product in sort of mid-November, but unfortunately Marc wasn't available until very late November. I had to rearrange the production schedule a little bit. We arranged the shoot for November the 25th and 26th. I okayed the day with Stephen. We booked up the accommodation and arranged travel. We were fully prepared before we left. So on the 24th of November, which was a Friday, me and Steve got into the car. We made it to London and the destination about 11 p.m.
But we got the opportunity to drive through the middle of London and take in the vibe of the city before we got to do the shoot the next day.
Unfortunately, throughout the night I didn't have a very good night's sleep and I started to feel quite unwell.
On the Saturday we got up very early and went to meet the graffiti artist.
Tried to dress up for it, but it was just very, very cold. But like I say, we just tried to push through.
I was quite overwhelmed when I got there with all the work that was taking place. Had a walk around to sort of assess the lighting. There was a lovely crack of light coming into the tunnel.
Basically just started working the scene, trying to judge the light, looking for interesting compositions. On the 26th, we met Marc at his studio.
So the previous day we'd seen what he displays out in the city, but this gave us an insight into him as a person.
Again, just worked the scene, just worked the light and the contrast, looking for interesting compositions. After we'd finished there, we moved back into Marc's personal studio where I conducted an audio interview. It was only at that time that I realised that I'd left my workbook in Plymouth, which had all my interview questions in it. It was kind of a big failing on my part.
If the questions were in place, that would have made things flow much more easily. Otherwise, like I mentioned, I think you'll end up with me gabbling on ad infinitum.
So I started to archive footage and basically build short shot sequences. The edit took about 4 days. I created an edit that I then sent to Simon and then, rather unhelpfully, decided to change my mind.
So I was given a few links and a few images of Marc's work. Straight away I had ideas, musical ideas. I was given 3 different edits. Each one changed ever so slightly, but the music was in keeping with it all. There weren't many changes on my part to it that I had to deal with. I work with guitar-based music, but with this project it doesn't really lend itself to that at all. So a lot of this is using drum loops, samples, a lot of MIDI instruments.
Late in the edit as well, I got the first batch of photos from Stephen. Some strong compositions that allowed me to basically just manipulate them into being something a bit more moving image based rather than just still image, which works really well as a title sequence.